Welcome back, everyone, to CAS Aviation Deep Dive. Deep Dive number 11. We're going to be looking at some interesting trends in the aviation industry today, from cool new tech to the financial kind of hurdles and strategies airlines are using today.
Yeah, it's really a fascinating mix of, how do you deal with the now, but then also plan for a future that could look drastically different.
Absolutely. And one thing that really stood out to me was Air New Zealand having to kind of hit pause on their flights to Seoul because of engine problems.
Yeah.
It's not every day you hear about an airline saying, well, we can't get the engine.
It's not a common headline, and it makes you realize, how fragile those supply chains can be. And it's not just Air New Zealand. We're seeing these engine shortages kind of pop up more and more.
Right.
It throws schedules into chaos. Passengers are frustrated, and of course, the airline's bottom line takes a hit.
And Air New Zealand's doing what they can to kind of soften the blow for passengers, finding alternative flights, working with partners, offering refunds, things like that.
Yeah.
But they're also saying, hey, once we get some more engines, we could bring that Seoul route back.
Right.
So, is this just a temporary blip, or is this engine shortage really going to be something the industry is kind of wrestling with for a while?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
These very specific engine issues, they usually get ironed out. But what's interesting is this is all happening against this backdrop of this massive increase in demand for air travel, especially in Asia.
Right.
And so if the supply of engines can't keep up with that demand, we could be looking at, a major bottleneck for expansion, potentially more situations like what Air New Zealand is facing.
So Air New Zealand is dealing with that setback.
Yeah.
But then you've got VietJet, this Vietnamese airline.
Yeah.
They are having a banner year.
Yeah.
Record revenue, profits are up.
They are crushing it. Yeah, and they're really going all in on that international expansion, especially in India and China.
Right.
What I find so fascinating about VietJet is the way they've approached this. They've been really strategic with their partnerships. Like that deal they got with Emirates gives them a much broader reach almost overnight. Plus, they're investing in new planes. They're really pushing that digital innovation.
Yeah, that move to the U.S. market, that's a big one, a statement.
It is. It's a statement. It's like, hey, we're ready to play on the global stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, shifting gears completely. We've got All Nippon Airways, ANA, experimenting with this concept called airline retailing. Help me understand what that means.
It's essentially a new way of managing their finances, developed by Lufthansa Systems, and it aims to offer, passengers, travelers, a much more integrated and personalized experience.
Yeah.
Imagine this. You book your flight,
Okay.
and through that same platform, you can book your hotel, your rental car, excursions, all of it seamlessly.
So bringing the whole travel agency in-house in a way.
Right, because when you think about how people travel and shop these days, everything's online.
Yeah.
So why not bring air travel into that same fold?
Makes sense.
It's acknowledging that customer experience needs to evolve beyond just booking a seat on a plane, right? They want to be that one-stop shop for your entire trip. And if they pull it off, it could give them a real edge over their competitors, and we'll probably see other airlines scrambling to catch up.
Let's talk about Pakistan International Airlines, PIA. The Pakistani government is taking another stab at trying to privatize this airline.
They are.
And it sounds like it's a pretty complex situation.
It is. PIA has been carrying a lot of debt, and that has scared off potential buyers in the past. This time around, though, the government's really trying to make it more appealing
Okay.
by tackling some of that debt, offering some tax breaks to try and encourage fleet renewal.
But let's be honest, it's still a tough sell. Last time they tried to privatize, they couldn't really find any takers.
Right.
So will these new incentives be enough?
It'll be interesting to see. The entire Pakistani aviation industry, could be reshaped depending on what happens.
It's a lot going on in the aviation world these days. Everything from supply chain issues to airlines trying to find new ways to improve the travel experience to these big privatization efforts. It's a dynamic industry.
It really is. A lot of moving parts. And it's only going to get more interesting from here.
And it just makes you think about all the challenges, but also the possibilities. Where is this all heading? What will the future of air travel really look like?
That's the big question, isn't it? And I think the answers might surprise us.
Well, we've only just scratched the surface in this deep dive, and there's a lot more to explore, so stay with us as we continue our journey into the world of aviation.
It's going to be a fascinating ride. Yeah, it's almost a paradox, isn't it? This industry that's really pushing the boundaries of technology and travel. And we're still dealing with some pretty basic challenges.
It's like building the plane as you're flying it, right?
Yeah.
You've got these fuel costs and optimizing routes and these engine shortages. But then at the same time, you've got all these airlines thinking, okay, what do travelers want 5, 10 years down the road?
Right.
And how do we use tech to create a better experience?
Yeah, they're almost operating on two different timelines at the
Exactly.
same time.
So we touched on that ANA, airline retailing idea, but
Yeah.
I'm still not sure what that actually means for, someone like me who just wants to book a trip.
Right.
Is this just marketing speak, or is there something different happening here?
Think about the last time you booked a trip online, right? You probably went to a bunch of different websites, compared prices for flights, hotels, maybe a rental car.
Yeah.
Airline retailing is aiming to bring all of that under one roof, managed by the airline.
Okay, so instead of me going to Kayak or Expedia or whatever,
Exactly.
I could book my whole trip through ANA, flights, hotels, maybe even a tour of, I don't know, the Coliseum.
That's the idea. And it's not just about convenience for travelers. Airlines are hoping to use, data and personalization to tailor the experience.
Oh.
So think customized travel packages, loyalty programs that actually feel rewarding, and even using AI to predict what you'll need before you even realize you need it.
So it's kind of like how Amazon suggests products based on what you've been looking at.
Exactly, except it's for travel instead of shopping.
Got it.
And it makes sense. Traveler expectations are changing.
Right.
They're used to that kind of personalized on-demand world of online shopping, and they want that same level of service from airlines.
Sure.
Plus, airlines are looking for ways to boost their revenue, right?
Just ask.
Ancillary revenue, things like baggage fees, seat upgrades, and now potentially hotel bookings, tours. That becomes really important.
Especially with fuel prices always fluctuating.
Exactly. So it could be a win-win.
So potentially good for travelers, potentially good for airlines. But is it actually going to happen? Is this just hype?
It's hard to say for sure. It's early days, but there's definitely potential.
Yep.
The key for airlines is going to be investing in the right technology, building those partnerships, and being able to handle offering a wider range of services.
And they can't forget about the user experience, right? Because a clunky website or app, that could ruin the whole thing.
Absolutely. Nobody wants to fight with technology when they're trying to book a vacation.
So I guess we'll see how ANA's trial goes. If they can prove it works, it could be a game changer.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that they're not the only ones looking into this.
Right.
Other airlines are starting to explore this as well, so it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, let's go back to VietJet for a second. Their performance in 2024 was just incredible.
It really was.
Record revenue, big profit growth. They're launching new routes. They're even flying to the U.S. now.
Yep.
What's the secret to their success? I mean, is it just low fares, or is there something more to it?
It's a great example of a low-cost carrier that's managed to scale up and expand really rapidly. They've focused on key markets, especially in Asia, where there's just a huge demand for air travel. But it's more than just low fares.
All right.
They've been really smart about partnerships like that deal with Emirates.
Right.
That's given them access to a much bigger network.
And they've been quick to adopt new technology to streamline operations and keep prices low.
Yeah.
And, those direct flights to the U.S., that's a pretty bold move.
It is. It shows how ambitious they are.
Yeah.
They're aiming to be a major player globally.
And it's interesting to contrast that with Air New Zealand having to pause their Seoul flights.
Right.
One airline's expanding, seemingly unstoppable, while another's facing these operational hurdles.
It really highlights the dynamism of this industry and how unpredictable it can be.
Speaking of unpredictable, the privatization of Pakistan International Airlines is still ongoing.
Yeah, the Pakistani government really wants to sell off a majority stake in the airline.
And this time, they're trying everything to make it more attractive, clearing some of that debt, offering those tax breaks to encourage airlines to renew their fleets.
Exactly.
But will it be enough? Their last attempt didn't go so well.
It'll be interesting to watch. It's a gamble, for sure.
Yeah.
PIA has a long history and a big presence in the Pakistani market, but they've struggled with inefficiency and financial problems for years.
Right.
So the government's hoping privatization will bring in new capital, new expertise, but it could backfire.
This could really impact the whole Pakistani aviation industry.
It could, if it goes well. It could lead to a more competitive market, better service for passengers, but if it fails, it could destabilize the airline even further.
So we got contrasting fortunes, ambitious plans, some complex challenges. What does all this mean for the future of air travel?
It's hard to say for sure, but one thing's clear. The industry is going through a major transition.
Okay.
We're seeing rapid technological advancements, changing passenger expectations. It's all reshaping the very nature of air travel. Airlines that can adapt and innovate, they'll be the ones that thrive.
And it sounds like it's going to be an exciting ride.
Oh, absolutely. And probably a little bumpy, too.
We've covered a lot: engine shortages, airline retailing, aggressive expansion, privatization. Before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay.
We've talked about how the future of air travel might be more than just getting from point A to point B, creating a seamless, personalized experience that includes everything from travel planning to in-flight entertainment.
Right.
But what about airports?
Interesting question. If airlines are transforming into one-stop shops, what's the role of the airport in this new ecosystem?
Yeah,
Will they just be transit hubs, or will they become destinations themselves?
it's a fascinating thought, something we might have to explore in a future deep dive.
I agree. Definitely worth unpacking.
It's amazing when you step back and look at it all,
Mm.
right? Like, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from engine shortages to airline retailing, aggressive expansion, and these complex privatization efforts.
It's a lot.
The aviation industry is definitely not standing still.
And it's not just each thing happening in isolation. It's all connected, like we were talking about with airline retailing.
Right. It's not just about making travel smoother.
Mm-hmm.
It's driven by those airlines needing to find new ways to make money, especially with
Yeah.
how competitive the market is and with fuel prices being so unpredictable.
Yeah. And fuel prices are tied to global events and supply chains, which of course impact those engine shortages.
It all comes back around.
It's really a complex system, isn't it? And it just makes it so important to kind of zoom out and see the big picture and how all of this is impacting the future of air travel.
Absolutely. It's all interconnected.
Like VietJet's success isn't just because of their marketing or how fast they're expanding.
Right.
They really understand what the Asian market needs. They're using technology to keep costs down, and they're really good at forming those partnerships to get a wider reach.
And then you look at Air New Zealand and, while their situation with those Seoul flights is a setback, it shows how important it is to be flexible and take care of your customers in an industry where things are always changing.
Absolutely.
So looking ahead, what's next? Any predictions for the coming years?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but I'd say we're definitely going to see continued growth in demand for air travel,
Okay,
especially in Asia.
right.
So airlines are going to have to expand their fleets and figure out ways to be even more efficient.
Yeah,
I think we'll also see a lot more airlines using technology in all sorts of new ways, not just for booking tickets, but for things like predicting maintenance needs,
okay.
maybe even personalized entertainment during flights.
Yeah,
And who knows, maybe even autonomous planes down the road.
autonomous planes.
It's not as far-fetched as it sounds.
I mean, that's both exciting and a little bit scary. Can you imagine?
The aviation industry is always pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
So before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. We've talked about the future of air travel and those seamless personalized experiences.
Right.
But what about the airport itself?
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
What happens to the airport when airlines are becoming these one-stop shops for travel?
Yeah, will they just become transit hubs, or will they evolve into destinations?
Places with cool shopping, entertainment, cultural experiences.
Right, kind of adding to that whole travel journey.
It's something to think about. Maybe we'll dig deeper into that in a future deep dive.
I'd be happy to come back and explore that more.
Thanks for joining us for this CA Aviation Deep Dive. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies.